Hi class, it's Mrs. Schnee again with another math video. Today we are working on lesson 3, representing data graphically. And I have for you today some caps. And this goes along with our question, and it says Claire collects bottle caps and keeps them in a plastic container. Okay, I was collecting some for Mrs. Hooley, and that's why I have so many. Write one statistical question that someone could ask Claire about her collection, or you could ask me about my collection, I guess. So think about some questions that you might have. One option might be to ask what's the most common color. Okay, you could ask about the most common color. You could ask about the most common shape or size or type of cap. You could even ask about where she collected them from, or how often she was, maybe she was keeping track of how many caps she collected each week. I don't know, but as long as you're making some type of question that has to do with maybe size, source, number, some type of comparison that you could do, that would be a great statistical question. Okay? All right, so I'm going to push those caps off to the side, and now we're looking at this part here with estimating. I'm going to skip that for now. So we're skipping 3.2. That would be something that we would do in class together. Okay, so going on to this third part, it says been there, done that. Priya wants to know if basketball players on a men's team and a women's team have had prior experience in international competitions. She gathered data on the number of times the players were on a team before 2016. So looking here, we have all the men's team players and the women's team players. It asks us, did Priya collect categorical or numerical data? Well, we know that sometimes they try to trick us, so let's think back to that difference between numerical and categorical. When a number has to show some type of meaning, for instance, if you can compare them, and looking at this men's team information, this first player, it says that he played for 3 years or 3 teams before 2016. So that would be more than 0. And so when we're thinking that we could compare the numbers here, that would be numerical data. So let's go ahead and circle that. Numerical data is what we're looking at. And we can organize the information on the 2 basketball teams into the 2 tables. So I'm going to use 2 different colors just to represent it. It helps me keep track of things. And that might be a good way for you to keep track of your information as well. I forgot to mention that this one will be a lesson that you might want to print out the papers for. There's quite a bit of writing on here, and that way you can get that information and copy it down as you're going through. Okay, so for the men's basketball teams, we're looking at, this is the different responses, and then here's the frequency. So we're looking for how often that the players on the men's team responded with this number. So if we're looking at 0, we can go back to the men's team. We can count up all the number of responses that were 0. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, and 10. So 10 players reported that they had 0 years of experience, or 0 number of times that they were on a team. Okay. Next, we've got 1. So if we look here, there was just 1 time that 1 player stated that. There were no players that indicated 2. There was 1 player that indicated 3, and no players indicated 4. So we'll go ahead and do that. I put a note down here to make sure to double check that the frequency number matches or adds up to the total number of responses. I know that I have 12 responses here, so as long as I add 10 plus 1 plus 1, I know I've accounted for all of those. So that's a good tip. Let's look at the women's team. It says number of prior competitions, so we're going to go ahead just like we did and count up all the zeros. There's 1, 2, and 3. For number 1, we've got 1, 2, 3, and 4. For 2, 1, 2. For 3, we've got 1, 2, 3. And no one on the women's team reported that they had 4 years of experience. So let's again go through and make sure we have 12 responses. Okay, yep, looks good. So we've got all of the frequency. So you can see that when you're looking at this, since it's numerical, you can compare how the players and the years of experience that they had. So let's go ahead and flip to the next part. They're asking us to make a dot plot for each table. So again, I'm going to actually pop my paper off here so we can look at it kind of at the same time maybe. Let's see. Try to do that so we can look at both at the same time. So we're going to make the dot plot, and since it's numerical, we can use that. Over here, we're seeing that the response 0 gets 10. So I'm going to go ahead and make 10 points or dots up above. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. Kind of went over there. And then for number 1, we have 1 person that responded that way. For number 2, there was no one who responded that way. And number 3, there was 1 response. So we have 10, 11, 12. Again, there was 12 players that they surveyed, so we have everybody on there. Okay, let's switch colors for women's basketball. 0, so there was 3 players on the women's team that reported 0 years of experience. Number 1, 1, 2, 3, 4. 2, 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3. And the last one, 4, there was no one. Okay, so now we have two plots there, dot plots for us, and now we can study them. And it says, what do they tell you about the competition participation of A, the players on the men's basketball team? Well, you can see that most of the players happen to be new to playing basketball on a team. So you can say that they're mainly players do not have prior experience on a team. And I'm trying to write fast so that you guys don't have a 30-minute video to watch. The players on the women's basketball team, you can see there's kind of more of a variety. Where you're looking here, there's so many people who did not have any experience before. Over here, if you add up all of these, most people on the women's team at least had 1 year of experience. So we can say most of the women had at least 1 year of experience on a team. Okay? If we had some time to talk at our tables or talk with partners, we could maybe notice some other things. But those are the main takeaways for the dot plot, just looking at how these two teams have been comparing, how we can compare their level of experience with prior competitions. Okay? Now explain why a dot plot is an appropriate representation of her data. Well, one thing I'm noticing is if we have 12 people that we checked on, we've got 12 dots here, and we have 12 dots over here as well for both teams with 12 people. And it's actually really nice. You can see it visually. You can see the breakdown, and also there's not a whole lot of variety as far as the answers. There wasn't anyone with, for example, like 30 years of experience in competitions that would be like way off the chart. All the information that we have is pretty much close to the other answers and responses. So that's enough to really think about for why this would be a good way to represent it. Okay, I'm going to move through where it says, are you ready for more? I'm actually going to skip that. That would be a great activity if we were in class. But since we're at home and we're not really spending too much time talking to people about our lesson, I'm going to skip that one. Okay, so we're on to this part, and it says favorite summer sports. And we have a new survey. It's Kieran, and he wants to know which 3 summer sports are most popular in his class. And he surveyed his classmates on their favorite summer sport. Now, when I first printed this off, there was just all this information up here, and everything was blank. And to me, sorting through it was going to take a long time for the video, so I kind of did some of it already for you, so you don't have to sit and watch me do that. But I did leave a few more so I can show you how I did that. Down here it says, did Kieran collect categorical or numerical data? So going back to that first lesson that we did, talking about the difference, I want you to think about how you would determine whether this is categorical or numerical. You can pause the video if you need some time to think about that. Okay, well, I'm noticing that each of the responses, there's some variety with, there's lots of different sports, but they're not tied to a number, and they're not, you can't really compare the numbers. Like when you're thinking about volleyball and track and field, you could see how many responses there are, but volleyball isn't greater or less than track and field. So for that reason, we're gonna go ahead and say this is categorical data, okay? And it says, organize the responses in a table to help him find which summer sports are most popular in his class. So I started that. I found that it was easier for me to put them in order alphabetically so that I made sure that I didn't lose track of the different sport options. So we have basketball, diving, gymnastics, rowing, soccer, swimming, track and field, and volleyball. And what I've done already is I went through and I crossed out as I went, and I tallied through, making sure that I didn't miss any of the same thing. So I went through and I said, okay, basketball, and I went through each column trying to find basketball. I did a little tally mark on the side for each time I found basketball, and then when I was all the way through my grouping or all the way through my columns, I went ahead and put that. You can see it's easy to make mistakes. I didn't see this diving one, and then later on I saw it. So at first I said 2, but now I know that there's 3. Okay, let's try that for track and field. I'm gonna come over here. I see 1 track and field, so I'm gonna go ahead and tally it, and I'm gonna cross it off. Another track and field. So I've got that column done. Here's another one. And this is just an option for you as you're going through and making sure that you're catching every single response. Okay, and there's one more. Okay, so I have 5, 6, 7 track and field, and then now we'll go on to the final volleyball. Nothing here, nothing there. Oh, there's a volleyball. 2, 3, 4, and looks like that's it. Okay, so now I can go ahead and put in for my volleyball that there are 4 numbers of frequency. So 4 people said that was their top or favorite summer sport. Okay, let's go on. So it says now we're going to represent the information in the table as a bar graph. So I kind of started setting that one up again. I just didn't want you guys to spend so much time listening and watching me write things down. So I'm gonna go ahead and do that right now. I said summer sports down here, and I took each of the sports like basketball, and I put a B here. Diving, D, so that I didn't have to write it so small. And then on the side, it says number of classmates that considered the sport their favorite. So kind of have those, the X and the Y axis, I've got those marked out. So now I'm gonna go ahead and make a bar graph. So we have basketball, and there were 2 people that responded with basketball. Diving was 3, so I'm gonna go up to 3 and over, just making a bar. Gymnastics was 5, all the way up to 5. And you'll notice that I am skipping spaces. You don't have to, it's just a little bit easier to keep track of the difference. And I'll even like kind of shade them in so you can see. I'm not sure with the lighting if you'll be able to see them very well. Okay, so rowing was 2. And soccer was 2. My coloring within the lines is being tested right now. Swimming is 5. Track and field was 7. And volleyball is 4. I wonder what your favorite sport is. I'd love to ask you guys this question if we were in class. All right, so as we're going through, it says, how can you use the bar graph, so this one right here, to find how many classmates Kieran surveyed? Oh, well, if you wanted to know all of the people that they surveyed and you only had this information, you didn't have that information, what could you do? Well, you could come through and you could say, oh, that's 2. Here's 3. Here's 5, 2, 2, 5, 7, and 4. And you could add all of the columns. So 2 plus 3 plus 5 plus 2 plus 2 plus 5 plus 7 plus 4, and that would be 30. Okay, so you could see that there were 30 students that were surveyed. Okay, then it says, which 3 summer sports are most popular? Well, this is visually pretty easy to find because the tallest number of bar is here. So number 1, the most popular sport was track and field. And that had 7 responses. And number 2 was tied because the second place would be G for gymnastics and SW for swimming. So gymnastics and swimming tied. For second place. Okay, so that's number 2. All right, and then it says use your bar graph to describe at least one observation about Kieran's classmates' preferred summer sports. Now this would be a good time to talk to a bunch of people in class, maybe your partners or people at your group, but we don't really have that much right now. But what you could do is you could kind of think about what your observation would be. Mine is that the most of the people, so if you think about this one, and this one, that'd be 17 people, which is most of the people in the class, more than half at least. And most of those people, they all picked the top 2 sports. So it's kind of interesting. All the other ones didn't really have as many responses from it. So you could think about different observations if you'd like. Now, number 5, it says, could a dot plot be used to represent Kieran's data? Okay, so before, remember our dot plot looked kind of like when we were doing the basketball one. Okay, so we had the information here, and then our dot plot looked like this. Okay, but now we've used something else visually to represent this. And we're wondering, could we do a dot plot? Well, we could try it. Let's go ahead. If I did 0, 1, 2, 3, 4, and so on, I could go back through and I could say, okay, well, 2, here's basketball. Basketball got 2, so I can go say there's a point there. Diving, or what was D? Yeah, diving was there, so I could put a point there. But does this really tell me very much? Does it really represent what's going on? Even if I put rowing and soccer here, it doesn't really tell me a whole lot if I'm looking at this information. So typically when you're using the dot plots, you're talking about numerical data. And when you're using a bar graph, you're talking about categorical data. It's just a little bit easier to understand and represent that and share it with others. Okay? Ooh, we're at the summary, guys. Good job. So I will, I'll let you think through this for a second. Think about, what did we do today in this lesson? We took information, we organized it, we practiced all those things that we did in the last 2 lessons, but now we kind of put the numerical information on a dot plot, and we put the categorical information in a bar graph. Okay, so that is really the main idea of today's lesson, is knowing the difference between when you're going to use a dot plot, when you're going to use a graph that would look like this. So you can go back through, you can print this out, you can copy it, put it in your notes. But I just want you to know that there are different ways that you're going to express all this information. Okay? So today's lesson is just watching the video, and then again, I'm not going to post another one until next week, so that you can go in and work through the Khan Academy assignments that go along with this lesson. Okay? I really thank you guys for watching the videos. I know that they're not super entertaining, but they're at least some way that we can connect and I can help you through the math. Okay? Miss you guys, and email me if you have any questions.